Hello, welcome back to tonight's reading of A Tiger for Malgudi by r.k.narayan. So we stopped at the top of page 55. We were reading about the training sessions for the tiger. And it was interesting how the tiger is explaining it in its own words and thoughts, what all went through during the training. Now, this tiger has learned to understand human talk and to a limited extent, but the trainer, the captain, is very quick and fast, and so there's a lot of friction and tension. So the tiger learns bit by bit. We continue with tonight's reading. Every day I was put through this exercise. After a course of this, the next was only an elaboration of it. A few more obstacles were placed along the course of my run, and they had to be cleared with the same smartness. My only aim now was to please Captain, and when I did that, I got the reward, pieces of meat and water, and undisturbed sleep in my cage. The hurdles were of different kinds. Some were labyrinth-like, some were very twisted, that I feared I might get permanently crooked in that. Into some I had to crawl on my belly and then out. Some hurdles would lead me back to my starting point, and I had to clear them at the same speed, while he went gyrating like a spring doll, cracking his whip and commanding, "Come on, come on, come on, don't waste your time." He held a stopwatch in his hand and timed my run and movements, so that whatever perverse design he might have, I had to come through to the starting point at the same time. During the actual performance, he would announce, "Raja is now running at a speed of 60 miles an hour. The pace he generally maintains while chasing game in the jungle. From his starting point in the ring back to the same spot in 2 minutes, 5 seconds. Whether he goes one round or several rounds, he'll maintain the same speed. After that, you will see him go through several kinds of obstacles, hurdles, and mazes. You will see, ladies and gentlemen, that whatever the hurdle, he clears it and finishes his round within the same time, adjusting his pace appropriately. He is uncanny in his timing. Anyone who wants to prove that he takes more time and that I am wrong is welcome to step in here and hold the stopwatch in his hand. Anyone who can prove that he takes even 1 second more than what I have claimed will be given a reward of 500 rupees. And he would display the 100 rupee notes. But quite a few in the audience came down, but finding that they were expected to stand within the enclosure along with the tiger, made them change their mind and they went back. Now, Captain had a vast army working for him in the circus. Trapeze artists, clowns, trainers of monkeys and parrots, and so on. Horse riders, elephant and camel men. Each one handled a particular animal and had influence over it. There was one who could even make the hippo climb up to some height and sit on a stool. Every one of them had his peculiarities and problems, and had to be kept in good humor as well as discipline. Captain's wife Rita was at the head of the trapeze team, and Captain had many workers who pushed, unrolled carpets, and set up fences, furniture, and various other properties, and changed them quickly for the next item. As I became an established member of the circus, I was not isolated anymore. but was allowed to stay around the captain in my cage. Thus, I was able to watch him all day, and I also picked up a lot of information from other gossiping animals, which were kept near each other. The chimp was always bursting with news. Whenever we gathered together, our main topic was the boss. He had other animals, including a lion, which remained aloof but kept roaring incessantly, stimulating all the other animals to make noise. When Captain wanted quiet, he would go around cracking his whip and shout, "Shut up!" in a thundering voice, overwhelming the lion's roar. At that time, I only knew that he had some concern for me, but I was not ripe enough to grasp the meaning of what was happening. Only in retrospect, now I can appreciate the captain's energy and power and the variety of tasks he was able to perform to be successful and provide all that variety and quantity of food for us. Also appear on stage and do a great deal of off-stage work too, such as checking the accounts, making payments, handling his men and so forth. Activities that would go far into the night. In the midst of all this, he would also be thinking of new turns and tricks and novelties to announce to the public. So that was the business of running a circus, which Captain was doing. So he called his circus the creative circus. After getting an idea, he would shut himself in his tent, do some paperwork, and call up his chief executive and say, "Here is a new idea. See how it can be worked out. See me tomorrow with the details." It was not his habit to consult, but only to issue orders. He would just state what he wanted done, and then tell his staff to achieve it in a practical manner. They were not to say yes or no, but only to proceed to work on it. Now, Captain called his chief executive and said, "It's time to give a new twist to the trapeze items. It will be a sensation if the trapeze act also includes 2 somersaults in the air and then a passage through a ring of fire. I've thought out the details to some extent. I realize that a fireproof undervest for the artist, which doesn't show, will be the first requisite. Here is a sketch I have made of the position of the ring in relation to the swings and the net below. You work out the mechanical details and modalities. Bring your report tomorrow morning." So that's the instruction he gives in the night to his chief. The executive came up next day with the report after working on it all night, but said, "Madam is not for any change." Captain brooded over it for a moment and said, "Put Laila in Madam's place. The rehearsals must begin soon." Now, Laila was in number 2 in the team, and the madam was Rita. So, Rita and Laila are now pitted against each other. This issue precipitated a domestic crisis. That night, much shouting could be heard in their home tent. Madam threatened to quit the show once and for all. She said, "I'm not prepared to spare any of my girls or set fire to myself just to please your fancy. I'm not an orthodox wife preparing for sati." Sati is the main event where the woman sets herself on fire, and the wife says, "I'm not prepared to do sati." He retorted, "Look, don't talk like that. I'm not planning to set you on fire. You know that. I'm only thinking how we could give the public something new, some new thrills. Public must find it rather stale to see you and your girls in your satin tights swing up and down." Here his speech was cut short by the lady saying, You think our items are cheap and that they are easy. Have you any idea how every second one's life is being risked? You think whipping and bullying dumb beasts the only great act? Why don't you come up on the swing at least once and try instead of talking theories? Then Captain said, "You forget, my dear, that I did trapeze once at one time. And that's how I started, but I outgrew it. Naturally, you had to give it up, otherwise the swings would have snapped, or the roof might have collapsed and come down. Since you fancy so the husband and wife are arguing, the husband has become so fat, he cannot be on this trapeze, and the wife is taunting him for that. So we won't go into the details of their quarrel. After I had become an adept in racing over and through a variety of obstacles, I expected to be left alone. I was ignorant of the fact that it was only a preparation for another stage. What the captain had in mind could not be guessed by anyone. He always allowed an interval between stages of training so that I would live in an illusion of having nothing more to do. But just as I was resting, my cage would be withdrawn to the training enclosure, and there I would find Captain waiting, whip in hand. When I saw him thus, I would wish we could talk it over and come to an understanding instead of going through the hard way to get a pat on my back for understanding his wishes. Today he held a new terror for me. It was not enough that I ran through fast and through the hurdles. At one point, while rounding a bend, I saw fire and shrank back. I thought, kill me now, but I won't go near the fire. I was reminded of the village fire when the flaming torches nearly roasted me. I shrank back, and naturally the whip came down and bruised me more than ever. He would not allow me to retreat from the fire, nor go around it, nor away from it. He blocked all my movements with his person, shielded only with the chair, while his whip could reach me from quite a distance. In the state I was in, I could have easily destroyed him without a trace. Driven by desperation, panic, and fury, I had to content myself with roaring out, "Leave me alone, you monster!" But he overshouted me, "Raja, come through that ring. In that, come on, come on." The uproar and pandemonium we both created must have been heard all over the town. I snarled, showed my teeth, wrinkled my nose, opened my mouth and shut it, and growled as if the earth were trembling. But he was unaffected and warded me off with his chair and pushed me closer and closer to that fire. All my movement was restricted in such a way as to leave no room for me to move or turn except through the fire. First time my belly was singed, but in course of time I could pass through without touching the flames. And when I performed diligently, I became Captain's favorite again. With meat and water back in my cage, I was once again left to laze and live in the delusion that my trials had ended and I was going to live happy and free life forever hereafter. So the training goes on. The next piece of training was surprisingly mild. I was driven round and then stopped where a stool had been placed. I had to sit on it, dangling my tail on the floor. A saucer of milk was placed on a table. I was again and again forced to sit up in front of the saucer with Captain howling, "Drink, drink, drink," and holding his chair up. He bent down and put out his tongue over the saucer to indicate what I was expected to do. I watched completely baffled. But he was untiring and in imitating the act of drinking off a saucer. "Lower, lower," he would shout, and put head down and tongue out, tongue out. And he cracked his whip. When he did that, I knew that the next would be on my back. I was quite desperate to understand him. Surely he was not expecting me to drink that white stuff in the saucer. It looked like poison to me, but there was no escape from it. He hit me so hard while I had my head down that I had to bend further down with my tongue out. No sooner had my tongue touched the saucer than I was seized with nausea and a fit of sneezing. What stuff was it, tasting so awful? Later that day, the chimp strolled along near my cage. How I envied his freedom. I wished I could also go about like him. But the tigers seem to have a curse on it. No one can tolerate the sight of a tiger walking freely about, being burdened with the size, might, and the fierce makeup that nature has given us. What a blessing to be the stature of an ape. Human beings approve of him because he approximates to their idea of what a creature should be in appearance and size. The ape was grinning as he clutched at the bars of my cage and asked, "How did you like it?" "What?" I asked. "The milk in the saucer which you had to lick up." "Terrible," I said. "Why should I drink it?" "You will see for yourself soon. Why don't you like it?" "How can anyone like that terrible stuff?" I asked. "Human kids are brought up on it right from birth. Men think no end of it." "Do you drink it?" "Yes, of course, I don't mind, but I prefer banana and what they aptly called monkey nuts," says the monkey, the ape. "Why do you have to drink it?" "Can't help it. When Captain thinks it is good for us, we have to drink it," says the ape. "What is it made of?" I asked. He answered, "It is made by the cow inside it and is squeezed out by men every day." "Every day? But why don't they kill the cow to get it?" "No, it is drawn out without killing the cow, so that they are able to do it every day." It seemed a very strange way to do it, and it is evil tasting, surprising it should be found in the cow, which the cow tastes very good, but I won't drink that stuff, whatever may happen. Before I could ask for further explanations, the ape went away. By the time I could get a pat of approval on my back from Captain, I had become resigned to the taste of milk. After that, a new item cropped up. As I looked up from the saucer at a training session, I found seated opposite me across the table a goat. An extraordinary thing to happen. I thought I was being specially rewarded with fresh food for accepting the milk, though it made my head reel. A goat sitting up with a tiger as an equal. What a crazy situation. No goat would ever dare to do such a thing. Anyway, I would accept the gift and get the milk taste out of my tongue. I gave a shout of joy and the usual victory cry before pouncing across the table. But when I stirred, I was whipped back to my seat and the goat was withdrawn. When I was back in my seat, another pan of milk appeared and the goat was back in his seat. I could not understand. This kind of jugglery was disturbing. Sitting on my haunches was irksome and painful. The sight of the pan of milk was offensive, and the goat was appetizing. But what was happening was beyond my understanding. What perversity that I should consume what I hated and leave what I would relish. There seemed to be an entire indestructibility about the goat and the pan of milk. There seemed to be an eerie indestructibility about the goat and the pan of milk. Any other goat would have run away or vanished into my belly. This sort of dodging and reappearing, I didn't like it. It was confusing, maddening. I didn't like it at all. I went at it again and again, and it disappeared and reappeared after I had been whipped back to my seat. Ultimately, I realized that it would be best to keep still and take no notice of the goat. If it was not meant for me, why were they offering it? The ways of Captain were mysterious. Whatever he had in mind, he seemed to be able to express it only through violence. How I wish that he could speak my language, or I could speak his language. There was no meeting ground between us, but still we had so much to do with each other till all the time. That was the irony of fate. Captain was convinced that if he bellowed deafeningly, I would understand. Stupid fellow, although I had to admire him for several reasons. Ultimately, by sheer doggedness, he made me realize that I was to ignore the goat. If I had realized it was only a dummy for purpose of practice, it would have been quite simple. But it was so lifelike, I was deceived. I ignored it now. I sat peacefully, hoping as usual that my trial was ended and that I could go back to my home. But there could be no such thing as the end of in my life. The end of one trouble was just the beginning of another. Here I was disciplined enough to not to move a muscle in the presence of the goat. I do not know at what point they had substituted the real one. But it bleated, and that roused me. Suddenly, the dummy goat bleated. I involuntarily tensed. But Captain was too watchful and shouted, "Stay back, Raja." And that was enough warning for me. The stupid goat forgot its perils and became greedy at the sight of the milk. It immediately put its head down and lapped up the saucer dry and sat up to look at me as if to ask, "What next?" Captain directed it with the slightest flourish of his whip and without any display of the chair. He looked pleased at the performance of the goat. With a smile on his face, he ordered for more milk. Just as I was feeling relieved that the terrible drink was gone. When another supply of milk came, he said, "Raja, now that milk is for you. Lower your head and drink that milk." What an impossible torture. I would have preferred to have that goat sitting and blinking before me. I couldn't understand what he kept it for. Milk, indeed. I hesitated, noticed a slight movement of the whip, and bent down to the saucer, pretended to lick the milk, and sat back as well as I could. Next, it was the goat's turn. Captain ordered it with a slight wave of the whip, and the goat bent down and licked the plate dry. It was surprising how much milk the goat could consume. It looked as if it were the captain's intention to fill the goat to bursting point. He filled up the saucer again and again. It was merciful of him not to order me to drink the whole of the milk each time. He was satisfied if I dampened my nose or my tongue, and then I could resume my seat. This went on all afternoon. The goat finished his portion first, and then whatever remained on that plate after my show of drinking. Though I had by this time been forced to get used to the proximity of the goat, I began to hope that the goat might explode loudly with the quantities of the milk inside him, and when that happened, they would surely pass him on to me, as they would have no further use for him. We had to be licking the milk alternately for that whole day. I felt completely exhausted when I was allowed to return to my cage and could hardly eat when my meat was brought in because of the lingering smell of milk. I just sank down and slept. Next day, I was put through a new set of exercises. I had to sit still until the goat had started lapping it up, and then take my mouth to the saucer at the same time and pretend to enjoy the drink in his company. This was a trying moment, as the proximity of the goat's head and its flavor was overpowering. I was perplexed at the way the whole thing was working out. I was amazed at the foolhardiness of the goat, which enjoyed its milk, notwithstanding possible annihilation any moment. We had to rehearse this piece day by day until I was supposed to cultivate a taste for milk and an apparent distaste for the goat. When Captain was satisfied with the results, he made me rehearse the whole series, starting with running running round through obstacles and fire, and coming to rest for a saucer of milk. He set special value on this part and announced it with fanfare for the Jubilee show, where it was to be presented as a 4-in-1 act. Before the Jubilee, he presented me in single item acts, each once a week. He announced me to the public as that miracle tiger Raja the Magnificent. I must have indeed looked grand and mighty, with my yellow and blacks acquiring a special gloss. Yes, possibly through doses of milk imbibed each day. He explained that I was not an ordinary commonplace tiger, but an intelligent creature, almost human in understanding. He can read the time. He always held up his stopwatch in my face before I started my round of runs, saying, "Mark the time, Raja, and keep up your speed." Captain presented his show 6 months in a year in Malgudi town. A team of men went round the villages in their district, clad in fancy costumes and with the beat of drums and a megaphone, advertised the circus. They drove around village streets in a Model T Ford, painted black and yellow to remind one of the tiger. They went up to Komal, the farthest village, nearly 50 kilometers from Malgudi. On festivals and holidays, the patrons arrived by bus, lorry, bullock carts, and bicycles for the show. Coming into the town for the circus was an exciting event for villagers, who turned up in family groups and camped in the town under the shade of trees, in the veranda of the Albert Mission College, or in their wagons after unyoking the bullocks and leaving them to graze in the fields. At every show, all seats in the galleries were taken, as were the benches and wooden chairs, and the squatting space on the bare ground not far from the stage. 6 cushioned seats were always kept in reserve for a hierarchy of local officials on whose goodwill depended Captain's survival. When the monsoon set in October to November, this circus moved out of Malgudi to other centers in a long caravan, parading the animals, which made the circus known all along the way. The central office at Malgudi worked all through the year. At every show, Captain made a speech, sometimes autobiographical, sometimes to boost a special act, such as mine. He delivered his message in at least 3 languages, as he explained. In Hindi, since it is our national language, and given to us by Mahatma Gandhi himself. Also in English, because, as our beloved respected leader Nehru put it, It opens a window on the world. In Tamil, because it's our mother tongue, in which our people understand it, and our greatest poets like Kamban and Valur composed. Also, the sublime, inspiring, patriotic songs of Bharati, who can ever forget them? Whatever the language, he spoke flamboyantly, always vouching upon his personal life, always touching upon his personal life. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, Romans, and countrymen, as Shakespeare said, I love my circus and the animals that have made my business a success. And I have pitched my tent here because I love Malgudi. I love Malgudi because I was born and grew up here. I was a backwoods boy, living and playing in the dust of Abu Lane. They sent me hoping to make a scholar of me to Albert Mission School. But fate will otherwise. I won't waste your time at recounting my adventures. While you are eager to see the performance begin, you will see my life's history in book form, a shiny, colorful brochure with his portraits on the covers, sold at the gate at cost price, so that young people may cultivate ambition and a spirit of adventure and bring our nation a great name. All that I wish to say is that the great circus master Dadaji of Pune adopted me and trained me. Though I looked like a vagrant, and I was indeed one. And he employed me at first to clean the stables and then taught me how to educate animals. I cannot begin the show without bowing in homage and gratitude to the memory of that great master. Captain was considerate and helped us conserve our energies by regulating our rest periods. On off days, he sent away all the herbivores to forage in the lower reaches of Mempi range of mountains. Camels, horses, elephants, and zebra went out in a sort of parade through the streets of Malgudi and returned in time for the next show. A set of animals always had at least 2 days' rest between performances. He did a lot of paperwork beforehand, scheduling each animal's duty and offers in a month. He studied the roster containing the names of animals. He had christened every one of the animals in his collection and drew up a sort of chart for each one of them. The most strenuous part of their lives was during the training period. At that stage, he was unsparing, and if any perished during the training, he took it as an inevitable risk of his trade. Once they were trained to perform, he viewed them as his assets to be protected, his own prosperity depending on their welfare. He bestowed special attention to my part of the work. It always came after the trapeze sequence, which was his wife's show. He never made any speech for introducing her, a matter which made her grumble from time to time. But he just waved her off. Everyone knows what a grand team you lead. Your girls are famous and need no introduction. Also, it would sound odd to boast about one's own wife. While with your wit and eloquence are reserved only for the tiger and the rest, I suppose, she would say. Yes, they need introduction, not you. Why are we always talking like this? Something wrong with your horoscopes. Your horoscopes and the tiger's horoscope seem to be better matched, she would say. Don't talk like that. Someday you'll be sorry that you have disturbed my mind. You don't realize that I need a calm mind and concentration in my work. My mood must not be spoilt. And if I don't need a calm mind in my job, you think only of yourself or your tiger. So they would have their bickerings, and this goes on. The way the circus was organized and run so efficiently by this captain So we are at the end of page 68. We'll continue with this next time. Thank you very much. I hope you liked it.